Hey, I wanted to make a video about the 1998 to 2006 Chevy GMC pickups, and as well as the 2000 to 06 GM full-size SUVs. About the blend door actuator, the heat actuator going out on the driver's side. So when you have a bad battery, you have to get a boost, or you change your battery, or it just goes out on its own. Heat will blow out on the driver's side only and nothing else. It won't switch to AC, and everything else will blow out cool or hot, whatever you choose. So the first thing I did was Google it, and I got a few helpful hints on Google as to how to change this thing, and it's a pain in the butt to get up in there. As you can see, it's like behind the dash, up under the dash panel and behind the center console. But there's this little piece. Once you get the guard off, there's still this little piece right here that hangs down, and if it weren't for that sucker, you could get the blend door actuator out pretty easy. The tools I used this flexible screwdriver, which came in handy a lot. That actually helped me out a lot. I got that a few years ago. I've had it for years. And on the end, it accepts these little socket adapters. And the size I used to get the splash guard off was a 7mm. It's 3 7mm screws, and the one right in here on the splash guard was actually really tough because it sits up in there, behind the center console. So I had to use this. A combination of this, and I got this 7/32 one fit on there. I'm sorry, 9/32 fit on there pretty good, and I was able to get it out of there pretty quick with those tools. But once you get to the actuator itself, you have these smaller 7/32 bolts in there, and these things are, the first one is not that bad, but the second one, way up under the bottom right there, is a pain in the butt to get to. I'm sorry, it's a pain. I found another tool online. I'll reference to it. I'll put a link to the tool below that I think will be a little bit easier. It's a little bit more expensive than this screwdriver I had, but if I ever have to do this again, I'm probably gonna invest in that tool just to have it laying around. So I got that little bolt out, and I'm gonna go ahead and show the process of taking this thing out of there once you get the screws removed. So basically, you just have to kind of wiggle it straight down. Wiggle it straight down, because it's held in there by that little thing right here. This right here is the blend door knob. That's what turns the blend door, and that fits right into this groove right here. So if you try to pull it straight back, it won't work. You have to pull it straight out of that. And this little tab right here had like a little bump right there. I know it's hard to see on this camera maybe, but this is what I did to repair this thing. I don't want to say I rebuilt it, but I did repair it. Excuse the sweat. It's hot outside in Atlanta today, College Park. But take these tabs. It's got little click tabs on the sides, like 1, 2, 3, 4 little click tabs. You just pry those out with like a little small tool, screwdriver or whatever. Pry them up, and then once you get those pried up, you can pull the cover off. And I'll pull it straight out from this side, the side with the label on it. So like I was saying, the label side, and then you get those tabs, it comes right off. I wish I could show it on video, but I only have 2 hands, no helmet cam right now. But what I did was I tinkered around with it a little bit just to find out how it worked. And what I learned was these gears work in sequence with this motor, and that's the first gear in the order, that's the second one, and that one this small gear on this links up to this gear, which links up to this one, and the bottom half of this gear links with the gear on the knob that controls the actuator. So what I learned was take this one off and just sit it aside, and then I took this little last big gear out, and if you flip it up under the bottom, you'll see these little rings right here, these little, whatever you call them, these little points, contacts. These contacts actually come in contact with that black area down in there. So the only thing I did was I noticed the contacts were not protruding as far as I thought they should, and they weren't even. They weren't evenly touching. I guess one of them might have been lifted off the rails and the other one was touching, so they weren't making proper contact. So I just bent them back a little bit, back to make them further away from the gears, and made sure they were both even and spread equal distance apart. And I also cleaned a little bit of the grease off this black area right here, the black areas, and stuck them down in there and tried to fit it in the car. Now when I did that, when I tried to put it into in the car, I noticed that the doors were off. This part that goes into the blend door was actually off a little bit. So I turned the blend door itself until I can feel that there was cool air coming out, and made sure that, you know, I turn it one way it's hot and the other way it's cold. It's cool, rather. Once I did that, I kind of like matched the cool side up to what corresponded to these lines on the back of the label side of the blend door actuator cover, which was really this line right over here on the right side. So the only thing I did to match this up, where there's a little, I guess you can call it a pointer notch in the actual, I'm sorry, notch in the actual gear, the main gear, and turned it until on this right here, you can turn this over and put it in the top part of the cover. It's got two stops that'll stop you from going too far. It'll only go that far or that far. So I just put it in the top of the cover and flip it over and make sure that it's pointing directly at that line, where this gear is pointing right at the line. And then I just flipped it back over and place this gear in its proper place. Or at least try to get it about where it needs to be. And once I did that, I just flipped the main side of the actuator on top of it. And it takes a little while to get it lined up. But once you get that lined up, where everything will fall in place, and the main part is getting this gear right here back onto its shaft. That's the main part of lining this up. This part will stay pretty much put, but you have to get this gear back on that shaft right there. And try to do it holding the camera. Okay, and then flip it over and make sure you got this part has to be lined up with that first notch. Okay, so I got it lined up. It didn't take that long. I just had to tinker around with it for a little bit. But as you can see, I got the lines pretty much right on in the middle of the notch. Now all I have to do is stick this back in, make sure my AC controls is all the way on cool now, and then put this in the car. I'm gonna make sure it's on cool before I turn it on, then put this in the car and then test it and make sure it works. So you already know how the installation process goes. I'm gonna put the camera down, install this, and then make sure it's blowing out cool air. One thing I don't have, which I wish I had bought, was a infrared thermometer. That way I can point, you know, the thermometer at the vents to see how so you can see how the temperature change. So I might have to go invest in one of those so you can see that this thing actually is working. The same thing might work for you, it might not, but I hope it does if you want to give this a try. That's why I'm making this video, to help anybody that doesn't want to spend the time or the money going to buy their own actuator.